Everybody, Molalla 912. It's good to see everybody back and familiar faces again. We've got some big candidates here today, and we'll be having them speak to everybody and take some questions as well. So looking forward to that. To start off, we'd like to open up with prayer. I'd like to ask anyone who would like to open up for a benediction this morning. Volunteer. Okay.
Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for your wisdom and grace. And I ask that you're more and more involved with what we're trying to do here, and that your values and your principles will be more and more applied in what we're trying to do. And just pray that you would bless the speakers here today, and bless this our gathering here today. In your name, Lord Jesus Christ.
Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Bill. All right, if you'd like to join me, and I'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Join me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I'd like to ask if we have any visitors or first-time visitors today. Recognize most everybody. Is this your first time here?
I've been to earlier one.
Earlier one, okay.
Much earlier.
Welcome back then. All right. All right, next I'd like to do a little quick passing of the hat. Mentioned before that we maintain a website that costs funds. Also, too, we rent the facility here. So Bill was fortunate enough to loan us our hat. So if you could help out, that would be nice. And we'll go ahead and do that now. Thanks, Bill.
Yep.
And it's a real hat.
You have been. Okay.
All right, so to start off,
20
I'd like to
What's that?
Don't put a 20 in.
Is that what that is?
introduce
Yeah.
our first speaker today. I'll kind of give some time, most of the time, to our guest speakers because there's a lot of things that we need to do and to learn about our new candidates that are coming in. And I, for one, can say that I'm really interested to hear what they got to say. So I'll open up the floor for our first candidate running for District 18, and he's running against Vic Gilliam, our famous rhino. David Darnell. And without further ado, David.
Sorry, I'm passing the hat for you right there. Well, thank you, everybody. Saturday morning, the only people you can get to show up to something of any value on a Saturday morning are patriots. And I myself, I'm an 09er. Like many of you, I woke up in 2009, looked around, realized the country was going to heck in a handbasket, and I needed to do something about it. And so what I did is I went to that first Tea Party meeting. I don't know how many of you were at that first rally, August 15th, 2009 in Oregon City.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah,
And I carried a sign, and I heard a few people speak, and we got kicked off of the post office and had to go down to that corner down there. People were honking and everything. And then after that, I showed up at an Oregon 912 meeting. And the first actionable item I heard there was some speaker said, "Go become a PCP. We're going to repopulate the Republican Party." I think he said maybe take over the Republican Party. Either way, I was in. And so I became a PCP. Later I became a delegate to the ORP convention where we wrote our platform. And that platform today that I've helped write twice remains my platform. So it is your platform if you're part of the Republican Party. It is mine as well. I later became a delegate to the state Central Committee, and then in 2012 I was elected chairman of the Marion County Republican Party, which I live in Hubbard, so I'm in Marion County. And throughout this entire process, I have been nothing more than just an evangelist for the power of the PCP, for the power of the individual citizen to do something about America. And so those of you who know me know that I spend a lot of time talking to groups, I spend a lot of time talking to people, and my goal has always been to just duplicate myself, to just take one more average, ordinary person like me. I'm a construction worker, I don't have a big pedigree, I work with my hands. Take one more person like me and equip them and empower them to do something about politics in America and about the way things are going in America and our state as well. And so that's pretty much me in a nutshell. If you look on my website, you'll see that I can be summed up fairly quickly by my very short Twitter bio, which is I'm a Christian, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a friend, I'm a conservative, I'm an activist, and I am partial to cars, guitars, and guns. And really, that's all I am.
What is there left?
I think that pretty much covers it. I've been a professional musician most of my adult life, and so I do like guitars, and I love cars. I'm a car nut. I've got cars hiding all over, and of course, as a free American, I enjoy my Second Amendment. My rights that are protected by the Second Amendment to keep and bear arms. So I enjoy that. So what brought me here is, as chairman of the Marion County Republican Party, and by the way, I have stepped aside briefly in that role so that I would not exert or enjoy any undue advantage over my opponent, Vic Gilliam. And so having stepped aside, but what brought me here is, in the past 3 or 4 years, the Oregon legislature has passed our own very special version of Obamacare that the nation now laughs at and calls Cover Oregon. It remains an unmitigated disaster. I think we burned up $134 million of the $300 million that we had to make it work. And it is the only Obamacare exchange in the nation that remains not working. Our legislature has done that. Our legislature in the past few years has voted to build a bridge that started, I don't know where it started at 1, 2, last quote I heard was $3.4 billion. I think most people think that it would have cost $5 billion, and I'm sure that once we got started, it would have went up from there. But they voted to do that. They voted to remove the Jason Lee statue, founder of Oregon, and replace it with, was it Mark Hatfield? Yeah. Voted for special driver's cards for illegal aliens, which I just cannot fathom that we would be providing special services to people who are not supposed to be here, so, as they say, so they can get to jobs they're really not supposed to have. I mean, that just, it slays me. And then most recently, those of you in House District 18, I should say my representative, spearheaded an effort to do an end run around the referendum process. And what happened with, if you're not aware, what happened with Senate Bill 833, which made a law granting driver's cards to illegal aliens, the people said, no, that's bad legislation. And so a referendum drive was started. Tens of thousands of signatures were gathered. We completed that process, and stop that law from taking effect. And we, as a state, the voters will be voting on this issue come November. Well, the most recent attempt by the legislature was this. They wanted to rewrite that ballot title, essentially turning it into a ballot title that people would look at and go, well, no, that doesn't make sense. And you know how they do that. And in effect, what these people were doing, our legislators, and this is the most egregious overreach of legislative authority I think we've seen in recent years. But what they were trying to do, and my representative, Vic Gilliam, spearheaded this effort, okay? What they were trying to do is they were trying to protect this legislation that they crafted, that the people said is bad legislation. They're trying to protect that legislation from the very people that have authorized them by their vote to legislate. And when that happened, my phone's lit up. I had PCPs calling me from Marion County, PCPs calling me from Clackamas County saying, David, we need somebody to run against Vic Gilliam. And I said, you're right, we do, because I am a 7 or an 8 out of 10 guy. If we agree on 7 or 8 out of 10 issues, I think we're on the same team, and I'm going to walk alongside with you, and we're going to move the ball down the field. I don't require purity, but what has happened is my representative is now like a 4 or 5 out of 10 guy. And so when people, maybe not even that high, I'm not sure, but he's definitely, he's dropped well below the 7 or 8 out of 10 threshold. And so what happened is people came to me and said, we need somebody to run against Vic Gilliam. And I said, well, I'll look around and see what I can do. Well, when I looked around, all the fingers were pointing back at me. And so while our legislature has been doing all this stuff, we remain in Oregon chronically unemployed. We have natural resources that just rot and burn in the form of timber, and you know, people have run out of unemployment benefits because they are chronically unemployed. My neighbor even lost his house. I mean, that, you know, and so while our legislature's doing all this junk, you know, spending our money, growing the size of government, we have people in Oregon who can't pay the bills, losing their cars, losing their houses. And so when people came to me and said, and finally I reached this, it's David, will you run? When they came to me and said, David, will you run? Will you represent us in Salem? Will you serve as our representative? So when I heard that, and I'm thinking about everything that's happened down there, I'm thinking about what it really looks like in the real world outside of that bubble. I mean, I think we've all experienced, you know, the economic hardship of the last 6 years. When I look at that and I look about what's really going on, and people saying, David, will you serve as our representative? I got to that point and I thought, well, the answer cannot be no. Because if I'm going to pledge my life, my fortune, which is now gone, by the way, and my sacred honor, I think nothing is off the table. I have never, ever once aspired or sought to hold elected office. That has never been in my train of thought. I'm a political activist because I enjoy helping people do something about what's going on around them. I never wanted to be that, but when it came time to go there, and I've joked, you know, over and over again, people say, will you run for this? I'm just a behind the scenes guy. And so when it really came down to it, and people said, looked me square in the eye and said, you know, will you serve as my representative? I thought about that. I thought about standing with Rafael Cruz when he was in Portland. At the very end of his speech, we all stood up and made that pledge to each other. Mine was, my wife was on one side, Dennis Richards was on the other. And I thought about that, and when I thought about that, I thought, well, nothing's off the table. I can't say no, because we need different representation in Salem. House District 18 needs different representation in Salem. There are a number of districts in Oregon, obviously from what the legislature has been doing, that needs different representation in Oregon. And so when people came to me, I said yes. And from there, I've embarked on this journey of becoming a candidate. I'm really just nothing more than a PCP. I'm a precinct committee person from Precinct 535 in Marion County. And so it's been a new and different adventure. But it all started, and I was telling Jason earlier, it all started at Oregon 912. Had it not been for the 912 movement, had it not been for that really big group of people that I came into and realized that I wasn't the only one, that I wasn't the crazy one, that there was a bunch of us, I probably would have never done nothing, or never done anything. Double negative there. And as a matter of fact, I was on the Glenn Beck show last year, and I said to Glenn Beck, I said, I am your fault. Because had it not been for that show, I wouldn't have, began exploring and reading and learning about, what's going on in America. And if it wasn't for 912 and a great group of activists, training by Freedom Works, training by AFP, training by, I've been all over the country training. I've been to Dallas, I've been to Charlotte, I've been to Las Vegas, I've been to Denver, training with all these different groups. If it had not been for those groups, I would have not have been able to accomplish my set goal. My set goal was merely just to duplicate myself. That's all I really wanted to do. I just wanted one more person who was mad like me. Anytime somebody says I'm mad, I'm angry, I go, oh good. Come here, come with me. Come here, we can do something now together, because without that passion it's very difficult to get anything done. So that's all I set out to do. If I'm elected as a representative, I will remain true to my principles, which are to reduce the size of government, the scope of government, the reach of government at every single opportunity, to eliminate and lower taxes, reduce taxes and fees, and to provide for maximum personal freedom. And those things, I think if we apply those principles to most issues, if we apply those principles to most issues, the issues resolve themselves. And with that, I haven't been keeping track of time, so shall I open it up for questions? Okay, before I get the shepherd's hook, I'll open it up for questions. Question, anyone? Liz?
So, your opponent was very noticeably absent on our mascot issue here in Molalla. For those that don't know, I'm sure everybody here does, ODE bureaucrats decided to make it so that school districts could not have Native American mascots. And so thus began the process of, school districts having to look at not spending thousands of dollars, in our case hundreds of thousands of dollars, to do away with our mascot. And it was really an affront to local control. And out of the legislature, we reached out to Vic Gilliam, and he was absolutely dead silent on this issue for us. There was no response from his office whatsoever. And so one of our school board members had to reach out to other legislators from other jurisdictions. So my question to you is, are you going to be there for us? Because other politicians have made promises for the Molalla area before, and they've fallen on deaf ears. So can you assure us that you'll listen to us and represent Molalla? Because I think, at least I kind of feel like Molalla gets forgotten.
Yeah, I agree. Well, number one, I actually live in House District 43. Now, I'm not going to cast any aspersions on my opponent, but there seems to be some question as to where he spends his time. I've lived here on and off since 1971. And actually, if you look at the back of my palm card, it has my cell phone number, which is right here. Okay, that's how accessible I am. They said I was crazy to put this on there, but if you need to talk to me, this is how you get a hold of me. And so, having lived here, for 43 years, except for a few years at college and stuff, I have a deep connection with Molalla. Even if it's only as a kid, we'd always go through Molalla to go up to the logging roads, to shoot. Occasionally, I think we drank beer. And go back down into our little respective communities, and I live in a small town. And Molalla, I remember when we were kids, Molalla was a thriving community. When we went up the logging roads, it was incumbent upon us teenagers to make sure that we were very aware of log trucks. Because log trucks didn't move, and log trucks were running because we were cutting timber, and mills were running, and we were producing great jobs. And I remember that as a kid. That's all changed in Molalla. It's all changed in a lot of communities, Gates and all kinds of communities. So I guess the answer to your question is I live here. I'm accessible. I don't know if I'll even get reelected if I'm elected. Sometimes I think in order to do the things that you need to do to get reelected, you'll end up doing the things that don't need to be done, or you'll end up not doing the things that need to be done. And so I look at this as just number one. People in Molalla, people in Silverton, people in Aurora, where else did they come from? Mount Angel came to me and said, will you serve? I said yes, and so, I'll be here for all of the communities as much as I possibly can. Most people know me in the Donald Aurora Hubbard area. I'm a little less well known out here because we are pretty spread out. But I have deep connections to Molalla and all this rural area out here. As a kid, I worked on the farms like everybody else. Back when kids could work on farms, when they were 12 years old, they could work the really bad part of an onion picking machine, which is very educational, by the way. Yeah, and so all I can say is, as your representative, you'll have my cell phone number. You can text me, you can call me, I will respond.
What is your stance on the Native American mascot issue?
Near as I can tell from the issue, it was not a big issue with the tribes.
No.
It seems to me, as much as I know about the issue, it's just a blatant PC move from a liberal legislature. It was a fix for a problem that as far as I can tell, didn't exist. And when you talk about Molalla costing a minimum of $600,000 to change their mascot, then it has some implications that shouldn't be there.
Right.
That's part of that legislation we shouldn't be doing. We have 2,750 bills go through in 2013. 2,761 or something like that. Is that the core function of government?
Seems to be.
What could we possibly do with 2,760 some odd bills? And I think this bill was one of them. So, I don't know how I guess we ended up on that at a kind of a compromise.
No, what we ended up with is a bill, a law, that is basically enshrined in ODE's decisions, bureaucratic decision, is now enshrined in law. That's
Right.
basically what we ended up with.
Right.
And it wasn't, this issue didn't come from the legislature. This issue came from bureaucrats in Salem who probably can't even find Molalla on a map.
Right.
They're not even elected, they're appointed.
They're not even that, they're hired.
Yeah. Big issue in all parts of government. Rulemaking by unelected bureaucrats. The legislature has absolutely no idea what goes on after they pass a law. No accountability. It's a weird thing. Other questions?
The Department of Education, if you ever got higher, would you like to remove that Department of Education? That seems to suck up all our education dollars, and those dollars need to go into our classrooms.
I would like to
And-
retain every single aspect of the control of education to the local school.
And the Common Core issue?
Again, to
You
the school
need to
board, including
find out more of the
curriculum.
Common Core.
Yeah,
Check that out.
including
That's
curriculum.
nationalizing our kids' education,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. We had a fun little Common Core moment last night. Last night at my house, I owed my daughter $50, and I had $60, and I said, "Do you have $10?" And she said, "No." And my wife says, "Well, we owe her another $50 for this other thing." so just give her 50. I said, well, okay, well, that's Common Core, right? So my daughter, who we're educating, home educating the grandson, she said, well, I guess I still owe you $10 then, right? So, it was a Common Core moment, but yeah, we homeschooled all of our kids for 10 years, 11 years. Let me restate that. My wife homeschooled our kids for 10 or 11 years. I went out and made the money. She actually did all the work. After about 10 or 11 years, she finally got to the point where she says, I can't do this anymore. And we ended up putting them in a private school and finished them out that way. But the centralization of control for not only education but for other things at the state level is wrong, because local control is best. The smallest, most granular control unit that we can do in America is best. And this might hit a discordant tone with some people. In 2013, I was analyzing bills for the Oregon Citizens Lobby. We had 5 principles we worked on. One of them was local control. This issue came up with centralizing, it was called the seed preemption bill. The lefties refer to it as the GMO bill.
Oh, yeah.
Centralizing the control of who can't use genetically modified seeds at the state level. And so we came to this dilemma, because generally speaking, we're on the side of the farmer, right? As conservatives. I mean, I worked on farms, grew up on farms. So we came to this dilemma. This is an issue we support, but it violates our principle of local control. And so we had a lot of discussion about that. How do we do this? Do we violate the principle because it's our pet issue, or do we stick with the principle and the issue? We don't get our way on the issue. In 2013, so in 2014, we come up with this again: marijuana dispensaries. Okay, now the issue is on our side, because generally we're against, the legalization of weed. We run the gamut on that. And so now conservatives are saying local control, because it's our issue. And I think one of the things that really is the tipping point for legislators is when an issue comes up and you have to sacrifice, well, you don't have to, but they do. You sacrifice your principle because of the issue. I mean, I probably would have been roundly shouted down and hated because I would have said on the seed preemption bill, I would have been called a GMO nutcase or whatever. On the seed preemption bill, we centralized power at the state. I would have voted against that, even though, farmers would have, probably shot me or hung me or whatever it is. And if you look at that particular issue, if you look at how the principle will play out, by voting no on it, retaining local control, if you play it out, and I'm a long-term thinker, I hate short-term thinking. If you see how it plays out, we've had a very, and this is kind of specific to the issue, we've had a very amiable Secretary of Agriculture in Oregon. Been really good farmers. Been there a while. Gonna retire. If we maintain our liberal governor leadership, the next one will probably not be so conservative and not be so amiable to the needs of farmers. So now, conservative Republicans have voted for this because we want to protect people from GMO. Now it's all centralized at the state level, so that when the secretary retires and we get a new one in there, from the state level, that new secretary can ban GMO in one scoop. And I think that was the short-sightedness of dealing very specifically with an issue without looking at the larger principle. And that's the first time that I have said that in public as far as this GMO thing, because when I was in the Oregon Citizens Lobby, people looked at me like I was some sort of whack job because I was saying, you know what, this is not local control. So where are we going to stand? Are we going to stand on a principle, or are we going to just fudge the principle because it's our issue. And I think that's what tips over in legislators, and we end up with all kinds of crap. There are many, many issues, but most issues can be resolved by the application of consistent principles. They don't always go the way we kind of want them to go, but if we apply the principles across the board, I think we end up with a much better government.
I got another question.
Yeah.
I noticed that all these bills are pages and pages long. Is there a way to make it understandable in fewer pages so you don't have a lot of extra laws stuffed in to these new laws that are being passed? The new
Is there a way to
legislation?
do that?
Is there a way that you can, is anybody can get it down to 2 pages or 5 pages instead of 1,000 pages like this Affordable Care Act?
Well, you know, one thing we can do is get rid of this yearly session.
Yeah.
Anytime the legislators are in session, it's not a good thing for us.
No.
Because we don't have enough people that are saying no. We don't have enough people that are saying this is not a core function of government. How we do that, I'm not quite sure. There are some other things we can do, and one of the biggest issues we faced, and it really bubbled up to the surface in 2013, is this emergency clause.
Yeah, overuse.
900 and some odd bills passed, strangely. All but one had an emergency clause on them. They were all emergencies. And what happens is the legislators do that, and you have to remember that we're dealing with a majority liberals, and us conservatives are in the minority. So they're driving, you know, most of that. But the reason they do it is because it protects the legislation from the referendum process. And so one of the things I'd like to do, and I've talked to other legislators, is I'd like to pass some legislation that'll require either a 3/5 majority to attach an emergency clause, or clearly define it so that it is an emergency. I mean, if Mount St. Helens erupts, we've got an emergency, or Mount Hood erupts, we got an emergency. If we have a landslide, we have an emergency. If we have flooding, we have an emergency.
Yeah. But they
The
put
rest of it is not an emergency.
Yeah, they put emergency on changing our statute.
Yeah, it's not. It's not. It's not. But they did that so that people like us couldn't go back and say, no, that's not good legislation. We want to change that. And it's just the relationship between those people in Salem and us is wrong. It's wrong. They forget how they got there, who gave them the power to do what they do. Is there any way to make the bill smaller? Oh man, great question. I'd like to find that out if I get there, I'll tell you. Because I have spent hours poring over bills for the Oregon Citizens Lobby, and it is dry reading. Oh, it's dry. You know, if I weren't an electrician and used to this National Electrical Code, which is equally dry and equally referential in so much as you'll go to some place and say refer here, and go to another place and refer here, and go here and it says refer here. If I weren't very familiar with that process and how to read that stuff, for lack of a better word, I'm not sure I can get through most of it. And I know that a lot of our legislators are lacking, number one, the ability or the desire or ability to read the legislation.
That's the problem.
Number two, they've told me personally that they lack another point of view on legislation. That the only point of view they get are from paid lobbyists.
Yes.
And so they're making decisions based on what the lobbyists are telling them. And all lobbyists are not bad. We have great organizations, Oregon Right to Life, we have Oregon Fire Federation, the NRA. You know, these lobbyists are lobbying for principles and values that I believe in, and I'm sure most of you do as well. But they're not reading the bills. They're not. It's difficult for them probably to provide a well-developed policy analysis. And so what I plan to do when I go there is I plan to use the Oregon Citizens Lobby. I plan to use people like Mark Anderson from iSpy Radio, who is one of the most incredible analysts there is. And he analyzed all these healthcare bills that went through. and he has incredible insight, very well credentialed, very educated man, very smart. So I plan to use these people to get an analysis of the actual legislation, so I don't have to rely on a lobbyist walking through the door saying, hey, let's pass this. You know, because he's got a dog, you know, the lobbyist's got a dog in the fight, but my dog in the fight is your agenda. My dog in the fight is, how does this affect the people? My dog in the fight is, does this make government smaller? My dog in the fight, does it make people more free? My dog in the fight, does it cost you more or less money? That's not necessarily the dogs that the lobbyists bring to the fight. Am I out of time?
Good. If there's any other questions.
Sir, Bill.
I wonder, is there an oversight committee overseeing the legislative process that are conservative minded that would be a red flag to bring to you as they go through this process?
You mean an official oversight committee?
Yeah, because I think that would, if there was an oversight committee overseeing the legislative process as they go forward with these bills, that would minimize quite a bit of what's
It would, yeah, it would. We have a kind of a unique system in Oregon in so much as bills are crafted entirely in committee. In other words, when it gets to the House floor or the Senate floor, it cannot be amended. You can submit a minority report which can significantly change the bill, but for the most part, everything's done in committee. So the key for us, and this is where the oversight comes from, is really from us. The oversight comes from the Oregon Citizens Lobby. The Oregon oversight comes from Liz saying, hey, we got a problem here with this bill. The oversight comes from calling my cell phone number, or if you really want to reach me, text me, because I'm usually talking to somebody, and sometimes I'll text back while I'm in a meeting. But the real oversight, I think, should come from the people.
Yeah, well, if there was like a group of people watching over these littler groups of people as they come together, that would save a lot of time and money and a lot of frustration probably.
It would. Unfortunately, we're not set up that way. We have committees that have both public comment meetings, public input meetings, and they have work sessions. And if you go to any of those meetings, the first thing you'll figure out is this. There are 6 to 10 of them. And by them, I mean the left. There's one of us at each of those meetings. If it's a hot button issue, we'll fill the room. But generally speaking, they're all paid, and there's 6 to 10 of them in that meeting, and they're the oversight, because the committee members are looking for answers to how to make this legislation whatever the sponsor intended it to be. Sometimes they actually even craft the legislation out of committee without putting a name on it, because they don't want to take the hit in the polls. So, officially we don't have anything like that. And that would probably take a constitutional, change or an amendment to happen. But as a tireless evangelist for really the power of the people, that's how we do it. Is we are the oversight.
I understand that, and there's an imbalance there in that part of the process where there was more conservative-minded people adding balance.
Right.
And then that would say, and so you might press for that and create positions for that oversight. I don't know if that would be something.
Yeah. Well, you know what I intend to do is I intend to keep doing the same thing I was doing before I was elected, and that's testifying in hearings. Because as a freshman who is currently not real well liked in Salem by the Republicans, I've been told that I wandered off the farm by challenging a sitting Republican, that I don't know my place as a county chair. Because my place as a county chair is to support the candidates, apparently regardless of how they vote, and to get the word out. That's what John Davis said. Okay? Representative John Davis. He said that publicly. He said, it's your job to get the word out. So I'm not well liked. So what I plan to do when I go in there is the exact same thing I was doing during the legislative session with the Oregon Citizens Lobby. I plan to go to the committee meetings to testify, to submit testimony, because as a freshman, I'm not going to get a committee appointment. You know, they're going to look, and I mean, I may as well say it, as a Tea Party guy, you know, they're going to look at me, they're going, oh, God, we've got one of them in our caucus, you know? And, you know, so, you know, they're not going to appoint me to anything. They're going to just kind of sit me out, but I plan to go there and be that oversight. And there are a few more of us that are likely to get elected. Mike Neerman running against Jim Thompson, Greg Barretto in House District 58 over in Union County. And so we hope to have our own little cabal in there.
So one quick thing.
Yeah.
Dave, you know, how can we help you? You know, as you know, citizens of Molalla and the greater area here, to be able to help your efforts in the future. I don't know if you can share kind of what you were talking about, your office space.
Oh yeah.
With everybody, is that something that we can here locally be able to help with?
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely. Yes.
Sure
My
needs
campaign manager, Cynthia, just came in. And we're going to be opening up an office this afternoon at 2 o'clock at the corner of Main and Molalla. That nice big corner space with all the windows. We'll have Darnell for state representative. We're having some lag issues on our materials. We need, you know, we have reserved a spot at the sign printer for this week, and hopefully we'll get the artwork to them. But we're going to have 100 field signs. We're going to have 750 yard signs that we need to distribute ASAP. So we could use sign installing crews, okay? People who are willing to distribute to the best of their ability yard signs as well. They'll be available at our campaign office. But most importantly, what the campaign can use is a front porch talk with the voters of Molalla. Most voters in Molalla are conservative. I am a conservative first. I am a Republican merely because it best reflects my values and my principles. But I remain a conservative. And so I'm a conservative Republican running in a conservative Republican area. And so what we need to do is I need people to go out and talk to the voters. I need them to know what their representative has been doing, which is not voting like a Republican. The name of my committee is I'll Vote Like a Republican Should. It's really not that hard. So we need to go out and talk to them and then ask them to commit to number one, filling out their primary ballot, because it's very difficult. We get a very, very low turnout on primary ballots. Less than 30%. Less than 3 out of 10 Republicans you talk to will actually take the 5 minutes it takes to fill out the ballot and return it. So if I can get a commitment from the voter to vote in the primary and vote for me, we win. If I win, you win. Actually, regardless, you know what? Even if I lose, all the voters win because now you had a choice. You had a choice on which Republican you wanted to send. So win or lose, and this is what I said to the House caucus. I said, are you willing to stand up, you know, in public and say, we don't think the voters should have a choice as to which Republican they should vote for? Because that's what you're telling me by telling me I shouldn't be running against a Republican. You're saying the voters should not have a choice. Well, I think if the voters have a choice, the voters win. And the voters are the important part. The legislator is nothing more than the guy you send out there to do the coin toss. He's the work guy that you send out there. It's the voter that matters. So yeah, signs, come by the office. We'll probably need staffing for the office as well. Cynthia, you can talk to Cynthia here. She's a lot smarter than I am. She has all the details in her head. I'm pretty scatterbrained when it comes to all the details. Sue.
As far as walking, obviously it's a Republican primary. Are you going to have lists available of
Yes.
voters that you want your campaign walkers to hit?
Yes. Yes, and I've discussed this with PCPs in the House District 18, and I'm much more open to talk to the House District Captain and talk to the PCPs in House District 18 and say, which voters should we go to? Should we go to them all? Should we go to just the primary voters? You know, so there's about 5,000 primary voters. Vic received 4,800 votes in the last election without a primary challenger. So we know there's about 4,800 people that will vote in the primary. Turnout will probably be a little bit higher because we are going to hit the ground game very, very hard at the campaign level. And we can use all your help in that as well. And so, you know, we might be a little bit over 5,000. So I need a little over 2,500. I'd like to have 3,000 votes. So we can do all the walk lists. We have all of the data, but I'm much more open to people that live in the neighborhood to say, you know, who should we go knock on? If you think we should go knock on Republicans that haven't voted in the primary because we think we can energize them at the doorstep to do that, I'm absolutely all for it. So we'll have all of everything that we can, all of the resources that we can muster will be available at our campaign office.
We'll call you, text you.
All right, good, yeah.
You could probably use some of this, right? Some money?
Yeah, money's always
I've only
good.
donated to 2 candidates so far this season, and you're my 3rd one.
There it is.
So,
Yeah, I appreciate that.
you could probably use some of that too.
Need to sign your name on there.